Welcome this amazing group again to CILC's Community of Learning. We have the Butterfly Pavilion here today. I am so excited to be learning along with all of you. So Teacher Kayla, thanks again for stopping by. We are so excited to learn along with you today.
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name is Kayla, and I'm the School and Virtual Programs Coordinator at Butterfly Pavilion. Very excited that y'all can be here today. Love seeing from all over the country and all over the world. It's super exciting. So let me share my screen really fast. All right, my friends. So today, we are talking all about spiders. So Butterfly Pavilion, as our name suggests, we do have a lot of butterflies, but for the month of October, the spiders take over. So if you are not familiar with us, we are a zoo located in Westminster, Colorado. So we're just a little bit north of Denver, Colorado, and we highlight invertebrates. So invertebrates are animals that don't have a backbone. And there are invertebrates that can be found all over the planet. Includes butterflies, of course, things like earthworms, snails, sea stars, jellyfish, and of course, spiders. And the amazing thing about invertebrates is they make up 97% of all life on Earth. So us vertebrates, us animals with backbones, with spines, we're only 3%. Now that's still lots and lots of animals. I mean, all the humans alone, that's millions, millions of people. So invertebrates outnumber us quite a bit, and they are really, really important for our ecosystems. And the best thing about invertebrates is you can find them anywhere. No matter where you are in the world, no matter whether you live in the city, in the suburbs, in the country, you can probably walk out your door and find some invertebrates. And this time of year, as it's started to get chilly, at least in North America, you might start seeing them in your house as well, because they come in and they want to share some of that heat. So today, the spiders are taking over Butterfly Pavilion. So let's learn what a spider is. So spiders are arachnids, and they are a group of animals that include things like scorpions, ticks and mites, harvestmen, or daddy longlegs, as they're sometimes called, camel spiders, and really, really interesting animals. So all spiders are arachnids, but not all arachnids are spiders, if that makes sense. So things like scorpions and ticks and camel spiders are going to be kind of like cousins to our spiders. And they're all really, really cool, but we're going to focus on spiders today because they are my favorite. So let's go over spider anatomy really quick. I think kind of going over the body parts, one can help you just kind of understand how their bodies work. Spiders are a little weird, and sometimes people find them scary. And so just sort of learning that their bodies really aren't that strange. They are kind of similar to ours. And even if they have more legs or more eyes than we do, that's just the way their bodies work. So spiders will have two main body segments. So first you have your cephalothorax, and that is kind of like the center disc of the spider's body. It's where their legs attach, where their eyes are located, where their mouths are located, and their brains. And then on the backside, we have the abdomen, which is usually larger. Depends on the type of spider. But that's going to be just like our abdomens. That's where most of their organs are located. And then, of course, they have 8 legs, but they also have 2 smaller limbs called pedipalps. And you can kind of think of these as sort of hands or arms. They help the spiders hang on to their food. They also use them for feeling and sensing and even for communicating with one another. Now, depending on the type of spider, the pedipalps may be long. So like we're looking at a tarantula right now on the screen, their pedipalps are about half the length of their regular legs. But on some spiders, they may be like little dinky T-Rex arms. Like they're just really, really tiny. They're not super long. It's really just long enough to help them get food in their mouth. And then they have eyes. Now, not all spiders have 8 eyes. Sometimes they have 6, sometimes they have 4, sometimes they even only have 2. And then depending on the type of spider, they may be on the top of the cephalothorax, or they may be on the front. And we'll look at some of those differences because a lot of it depends on how the spider hunts and if they have good vision or maybe not so great vision. And then the chelicerae. So these are going to be the spider's mouth parts. So they're kind of like, almost look like a little mustache almost. And they are going to be tipped in those hollow fangs, which is how they deliver their venom and how they eat their food. And then finally, we wouldn't have spiders, wouldn't have beautiful spider webs without the spinnerets. And so again, these are going to be kind of off the abdomen. And again, depending on the size of the spider, those spinnerets may be very visible. Like on a tarantula, you can see they're like almost two little appendages almost, or they may be really close to the body and really, really tiny. So, but no matter what type of spider you're looking at, they're going to have all these same body parts. Now, spiders are incredibly diverse. There are approximately 50,000 species of spiders that can be found all over the world. And they can be maybe kind of plainly colored. They can be super duper colorful. They may live in webs. They may live on the ground. They may be small enough to perch on the point of your finger, or they may be bigger than your hand. But we're going to go today, we're going to go over kind of just some common spiders, some of my favorites. Now, we are kind of North America based because that's where I'm at. And so I did build this based off the spiders that I see. For some of my friends, I know we had some in Nicaragua and Greece. And if anyone else has joined, if I missed you, you may have some different types of spiders than what we're going to look at here. But they are pretty generic, and most of them, you're going to at least have something similar. So let's jump in, didn't even mean to make a joke, with jumping spiders. So I did see that we have at least one jumping spider on today, Clover. Very, very excited to have Clover on as well. So jumping spiders, they're adorable. If you've ever seen Lucas the spider, you probably know what we're talking about. And they are having a little bit of a moment. They're very popular as pets right now because they're actually really friendly little spiders. They're pretty easy to care for, and they're a lot of fun. So our little jumpers, they have fantastic eyesight, and you can definitely see that, right? See how big those two primary eyes are. They can see really well. They can see in color from those two eyes, and they can see super well. So kind of the equivalent would be if you had binoculars strapped to your face. So whatever you're pointed at, you can see super well, but you probably can't see to the sides when you're looking through binoculars, right? However, jumping spiders, they have a nice little solution because they have more eyes that wrap around the sides of their head. So they can see what's going on to the side, and they can see what's going on in front of them. And because they have such good eyesight, they do rely on their vision to hunt. So they will follow prey, track it with these amazing eyes, and then once they're close enough, they pounce on it. And jumping spiders, as far as spiders go, are pretty small. They usually are kind of fuzzy or fluffy. And there are over 6,000 different types of jumping spiders across the world. Some of them can look really funny. Some of them look like little ants. Maybe they're ant mimics. Some of them have fancy little backsides with colors like the peacock jumping spider. But here are some common ones we can see in North America. So my guess would be that Clover is either a regal jumping spider or a bold jumping spider would be my guess. These are very popular species to keep as pets because they are a little bit larger and they're very colorful, and they're usually can be habituated to, you know, kind of jump around in humans' hands and crawl around on you. But they do exist in the wild as well. And then up at the top, at least in Colorado, we're seeing a lot of Apache jumpers right now. And they're black bodies with kind of orangish red on the back. They've got great coloration. They're super cute. And then one of my favorites are the zebra jumpers. Now, these are teeny tiny little spiders. They probably are not going to get much bigger than your thumbnail. So they do stay super small, but they've got fancy little stripes, just like a zebra. And I had about 20 living on my deck this summer. And they were great to have around because they're great pest control. They're very good at catching all kinds of bugs, not so much flying insects, but things that live on the ground, like beetles and roaches and grasshoppers. So they are really, really good to see out in your yards and your gardens. And just a fun fact about jumping spiders, because their eyes are so large, we are actually able to study them while they sleep. And so in 2022, some scientists did some research and found that jumping spiders go through rapid eye movement sleep, just like we do. So that's REM, or REM sleep. And when you are going into REM sleep, you are dreaming. This is when your brain is processing all that information and you're dreaming. And so it is quite possible that jumping spiders dream. So we can't say for sure, but we do know that their eyes go through that rapid movement while they're sleeping, just like we do. And so I like to think I don't know, maybe they're dreaming about eating a nice big grasshopper. But even if they're not dreaming, they also make these cute little like hammocks that they sleep in, and they will move their homes around. So if you ever find one outside, maybe like this little nest, you'll know that that was a spot where a jumping spider took a nap. All right, moving on. So to our orb weavers. So these, if you've ever read Charlotte's Web, Charlotte was an orb weaver, and they are known for making their gorgeous, intricate webs. So they can be very, very big, usually sticky silk because they are catching flying insects. So that's their main prey. They usually can't see very well though. Even if they have 8 eyes, they're not looking very well. They have to rely on touch and the vibrations moving up through the silk in their web to their feet to know what's going on. And orb weavers can be teeny tiny, or they can be about the size of a dinner plate. We've got some right now from Malaysia, so Southeast Asia, that are pretty large. Now they're almost all legs, but they're about the size of your face. And there are about 3,000 different types of orb weaving spiders. And so again, in North America, you're probably going to see yellow garden spiders or banded garden spiders. Those are the ones with the gorgeous black and white and yellow coloration. I'm a huge fan of cat-faced spiders. You can kind of see if you look at their abdomen back here, it almost looks like a little cat face, and they've got little points on their abdomens that look like kitty ears. So they're pretty small, not even the size of a quarter, but they are super cute. And then, especially if you're in the southeast, you might get lucky to see one of these spiny orb weavers. I know they look kind of intimidating with those red spikes. That's just to frighten you off. They don't want you to mistake them for something to eat. They are not harmful to humans, though, even though they look kind of intimidating. Now, if you're a little bug, though, you might end up on the menu. All right, another one of my favorites are wolf spiders. So especially if you're in North America, you might be seeing lots of wolf spiders coming inside this time of year. I found a couple in my basement. It's just because it's warm and they're looking for a nice space to spend the winter. And then also, if you can tell in this picture, you might notice the spider looks a little funny. It's because she is carrying hundreds of her little spiderlings on her back. So spiders in general, not the best moms. Usually they don't take care of their baby. She lays her eggs and then they got to hatch and they're on their own. But wolf spiders will take care of their young for a couple of weeks after hatching, and she will carry them around on her back. So if you ever see one, they do look kind of funky, right? Because she usually looks really big, and she's got all those babies on her back. But if you see one, you don't need to be scared. It's just a mom driving her babies around. And wolf spiders, like jumpers, they have really good eyesight. Again, you can see they have those very large primary eyes. And so they do rely on their eyesight to help them find their food. They're also fast. They, just like their namesake, the wolf, will chase down their prey. And so they're really great at taking care of like cockroaches and beetles and ants. So if you're seeing lots of maybe cockroaches in your area, maybe encouraging the wolf spiders to come on in is a great thing to do. And again, they do care for their young, and there are about 2,000 different types of wolf spiders. Now, in the United States, at least, wolf spiders do sometimes get mistaken for a slightly more dangerous spider, the brown recluse. They are large, they're brown, and they can be a little intimidating because they're so big. But compared to a brown recluse, they're not going to be dangerous. So if you, oops, too far, not ready for black widows yet. So especially if you're in the southeast or the Midwest portion of the United States, the brown recluse is something to be concerned about. We don't need to be terrified if we see one, but if we do see one, this is not one we try and pick up with our bare hands. And they are pretty small, very leggy, very kind of skinny bodies, and they don't look as furry. They do have hairs on their body, but they're not quite as furry. And they also have this little violin shape on their cephalothorax. So it kind of looks like maybe a violin or a cello. And again, this is not one we need to freak out if we see. They are very shy. They don't want to spend time around humans, but their bite can make you kind of sick. So this is definitely not one we try to pick up with our bare hands. But when you look at them side by side with a wolf spider, you can definitely see our wolfie over here. She's a lot thicker. She's got really thick legs. She also has much more prominent eyes, and they usually have kind of stripes on their cephalothorax, kind of like she does here. So anyway, if you see a big brown spider in your house, especially this fall, it's probably a wolf spider, but always take a quick look and check. If it's a wolf spider, you can either just let it be, let it hang out in your house. They'll hang around and eat bugs for you. If it's a brown recluse, this is definitely one I would prefer to live outside or maybe in a shed or a garage. This is when we let the adults move though. And adults, if you're going to move it, just put on some gardening gloves, thick leather. They can't bite through that, and get a glass and move them out into a different space because they are really good at pest control too. All right, widow spiders. So black widows, they again have kind of a nasty reputation, and it's not completely undeserved because they do have some really potent venom as well. So widow spiders are a type of orb weaver, and they have really distinctive coloration, and that's warning coloration. So that kind of red hourglass on the belly, or even some markings on their abdomens. That is warning coloration. She's telling you and any other potential predators that she's got a nasty bite and you don't want to mess with her because she doesn't want to get eaten. They also, instead of like really pretty, intricate orb webs, they tend to be kind of messy. They just sort of look like a cobweb or a tangled web. And they tend to prefer to hang out in dark, quiet places like your garage or your shed. And they do have kind of a nasty bite. This is not a lady you want to get bitten by. However, it's not a death sentence. At least in the United States, there have been no recorded deaths from a black widow bite since 1983. So our medicine has gotten a lot better, and people have gotten a lot better at identifying them and knowing how to safely interact with them. So again, this is one you want to be careful about. But if you do get bitten, not the end of the world. You just definitely are going to want to go to the doctor, and you're probably not going to feel too great for a couple days. And there are over 30 types of species that can be found, but in the United States, we have 5. So of course, you're probably thinking of like the southern black widow, or here in Colorado, we have the western black widow. They're kind of your glossy black with that red hourglass, but there are also northern black widows. So if you're in the Northeast, you might see some with these little red spots on their abdomens. In the Southeast, especially Florida, you have red widows, which are very distinctive, with that red body and those bright, bright spots. And then there are also brown widows, which aren't quite as flashy as their cousins, but they do have some really interesting markings. And then a fun fact, this is actually true of a lot of spiders, but especially with black widows, the males are significantly smaller. So here we have, this is a western black widow. We have the female over here on the right, and then we have the little tiny male. He's so teeny tiny. He's not nearly as colorful. And so a lot of times we don't even see them, or we don't even notice them. For the males, their venom is not as potent, so we don't have to be as concerned about a bite from them, but they tend to be really, really shy. All right, we're going to finish it up with my favorite type of spider. And I actually do have a special guest here with me today as well. And that is the tarantula. The tarantula. So it's spooky season. If you're watching scary movies or watching scary TV shows, maybe you've seen some of these tarantulas. And a lot of times when they're, supposed to be like something terrifying or deadly in the movies, it's actually just a really nice tarantula who is just crawling around and is probably going to get fed a cricket after she films her scenes. So tarantulas, they are pretty large as far as spiders go. They tend to be very fluffy, have lots and lots of hair. They have terrible eyesight though. They can't see very well. So they rely on all that hair on their bodies to help them sense things around them, just like a cat uses its whiskers. And there are about 1,000 different types of tarantulas that can be found across the world. If you're in the United States, probably not going to see them unless you're in like Texas, the Southwest, or on the West Coast. Here are a couple of our native species. Up top, we have a Texas brown. And then this one on the bottom, it's actually called the Johnny Cash tarantula because they're found on the coast of California where Folsom Prison is. And if you've never heard the song Folsom Prison Blues, you should definitely give it a listen. And I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stop my share because we got to show off my lovely, lovely girl I've got with me. I do have a very special guest. I have Rosie the tarantula. So let's take a look at her. I'm going to switch my camera. So there she is. We'll see if my camera wants to focus. There we go. Maybe we move just a little bit closer to her. See if that decides to. Now she's sitting in kind of a weird spot in her tank. So there she is. So Miss Rosie is a Chilean rose hair tarantula, and you can kind of see on her cephalothorax right there, she does have kind of a little pink tint. They're not always super pink. They do have some color variation, but she's got a little bit of pink on her. And as you can see, she is super fluffy. She's got lots of hairs all over her body. And yes, she is very cute. And I do apologize. I'm just now getting to the chat, catching up with y'all. I know y'all been sending lots of messages. So I'll catch up on those. So Rosie is from South America. She's found primarily in Chile, as her name suggests. And she's going to be kind of a desert species. So these pretty colors help her blend in her environment. And she is a predator. She likes to eat things like crickets and cockroaches, but she is not dangerous for humans. If she were to bite me, it wouldn't feel great, but I would be fine. But honestly, I would have to try to get her to bite me. If I get bitten by her, I'm doing something that she didn't like and she's letting me know. Now, for those of you who are local or maybe familiar with Butterfly Pavilion, we did used to handle Rosie with the public, but she has since retired. So I'm not going to pick her up today because she hasn't been touched in a while. I did poke her feet a little bit earlier and she kind of kicked at me a little bit, which is her way of saying, no, thank you. I'd like to just sit here. So we're just going to let her sit while we look at her. But she is super, super beautiful. So we can kind of see she's a little curled up. Let me bring my pencil in here. Her pedipalps are kind of in the front right there. And then her legs, give her just a little nudge, see if she wants to move for us. You see how she's kind of like jerking her legs. She's like, leave me alone. Stop poking me. Thank you, Rosie. You're being such a good sport about all of this. So I do see some questions. So I'm going to scroll through these while we keep looking at how pretty Rosie is. So Grayson asked, how big are the wolf spiders? So it does vary a little bit, but usually the females are maybe about 2 inches. 2 inches in diameter. Now that is with legs fully spread. So they can be kind of big, but not as big as Rosie here. And there's my hand. So she is maybe about the size of my palm. If Rosie here stretched out her leg, she's probably be about 5 inches in diameter. She is fairly big for a tarantula, but she's not the biggest. All right, let's get back up and check out some questions. So I love all the comments about cute. Yes, I love it. Does she bite? Corey asked, does she bite? So if you are a cricket, yes, she does bite. But if she really doesn't want to bite humans, right? We're not food. And the only reason she would bite us is if we were being really mean to her and she felt like she had to defend herself. But again, she's going to give me lots of signs that she doesn't want to be touched. So again, she kind of flicked her feet at me when I poked her. That was her just kind of saying, no, thanks. I'd like to be left alone. If I kept messing with her, she might rear up and show her fangs. So she'll pop those fangs out. And that is definitely a warning. That's saying back off. I do not want to be touched. And so if I get all that and I still keep messing with her, I probably am going to get bitten. But she has given me lots of signs that she wants to be left alone. So if I keep messing with her, that's on me. She's just like any other animal. Respect her space and she'll respect yours. All right, let's see. Are red and brown widows venomous like the black one? Yes, they are. Red widows in particular actually are even more potent than kind of your standard black widow. So again, don't need to freak out if we encounter one, but this is one that if we do get bitten, you definitely want to let an adult know. An interesting thing about black widow bites is usually the bite itself is not that bad. It doesn't swell up. It doesn't get all puffy or gross. It usually just looks like 2 teeny little puncture wounds from her fangs. And so sometimes you may just feel like a little pinprick, right? And you didn't even know you got bitten. And then a couple hours later, your head hurts and your tummy hurts and maybe you're not feeling so great. It's time to go to the doctor. So if you're ever doing things like yard work or cleaning out your garage or your attic, just be very mindful because that's places that they like to hang out. And just like Rosie, the only reason they're going to bite is if they feel like they're in danger. So imagine you're just hanging out in your room and then all of a sudden this giant hand comes in and starts rummaging around in your stuff. You'd probably be pretty freaked out. Same thing for spiders. And if you're the size of a quarter and the only way you have to protect yourself is your venom and your fangs, you're going to use it. But again, you can kind of mitigate this by wearing gloves when you're doing yard work, being mindful of any little spiders who may be hanging out, and things like that. All right, so let's see, lots of more. Yeah, so Corey, I think we're talking about the black widows here. The female ones only have all the venom. So the males still have venom because they need it to eat, but it's not as dangerous to humans. Now, again, if you're the tiny little bug, end of the line for you, lights out for you. But the males aren't going to be super harmful to humans. All right, let's see. I like the spiny orb weaver. They are super cute. Sometimes I show the spiny orb weavers to people and they're like, oh, it's so horrifying. But she's just spiky because she wants you to think she's something scarier than she is. All right. Oh, the cat face spiders scare you. You know, once you see the little cat face on their back, though, and their little pointy, like little kitty ears, they seem a lot less scary. And I found, like, in general, if you think of spiders as just kind of weird little cats, right? Because they like to just sit still. They like to sleep a lot. And they prefer attention on their own terms, right? They don't always like to be touched, but when they want to be, they're usually okay with it. So just kind of think of as like silly little cats with too many legs. Grayson asked, how big is the zebra jumping spider? So those are teeny little jumpers. They are maybe about the size of your thumbnail. So they're not very big at all. Certainly not as big as Miss Rosie. Yeah, some people have kept bold jumpers. Yeah, bold jumpers and regal jumpers are very common as pets, just because they are super, super cute. And then I think we weren't quite sure. We were trying to determine what type Clover is. So sort of depends on what color Clover is, if she's black or if she's kind of brownish. That's usually the easiest way. But as long as you're taking care of her, she's loving her life, doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right? She's just cute. She's just a cutie. All right, my friends, let me catch back up. Y'all are type faster than I can read. I love it. Ooh, Susie asked, can their back legs be different colors, like blue? Yes. So tarantulas come in all different kinds of colors. They can be kind of brownish or pink, like Rosie is. They can be black. They can be bright blue. They can be multicolored, things like that. Actually, I did have a picture in my presentation. We'll go one more. Let me share that really quick, so we can see kind of the spider diversity. I was excited to get to Rosie. But here are just some of my favorite species. So up in the top left, this is called a Brazilian black tarantula. They are close cousins to Miss Rosie, so they're also really friendly, very popular as pets because they're pretty chill and easy to handle. Mexican red knee, so over to the top right, that's another one that is very popular as pets because they've got that gorgeous coloration. They also tend to be very common in movies and TV shows because they show up so well on camera. They've got those bright colors. If we move down to the bottom left corner, this is an Antilles pink toe, and she's super pretty. They've got that gorgeous emerald green coloration on their cephalothorax, and then kind of pinkish red fur all over the rest of their body. The middle one right here, this is called a Brazilian jewel tarantula, and she is probably one of the prettiest ones. They are actually a dwarf species, so they don't get very big, maybe an inch or two. We don't have any at Butterfly Pavilion, though, because they're super shy and they never come out. So even though they're really pretty, they don't exhibit very well because they never come out of their holes. And then finally, this last one in the bottom right, this is a sapphire ornamental. This is an Indian species, and they're another one that is super common as a pet because they're really beautiful. However, this is more of an advanced tarantula. So if you're ever thinking about spider keeping, I would start with maybe one of the two up top, maybe a Brazilian black, a Mexican red knee, a rose hair like Rosie. These ones on the bottom, again, they're not really dangerous, but they can be a little more unpredictable as far as their behavior, especially the sapphire ornamental and the Antilles pink toe, because they're tree dwellers. So they live in trees in the wild and they can be super fast, which can make caring for them a little exciting because you never want your tarantula to escape. All right, let's see. Do the female, oh, how old is she? Yes, how old is she? So I don't know Miss Rosie's exact age because she wasn't born here at Butterfly Pavilion, but based on her size, I'm going to say she's about 15 years old. Female tarantulas can live up 20 to 30 years, depending on the species, and we would expect Rosie to live for about 30 years. So she's about halfway through her life. She will keep growing, though at this point, she's not going to get significantly bigger. She'll just grow a little bit. And then Alton asked, do female spiders eat the male spiders? Sometimes. So not always. However, if I was a boy spider, I would definitely be in fear for my life. So that is a reproductive strategy that some animals take because it takes a lot of energy to lay eggs. And spiders usually lay 100 to 500 eggs at a time. So that's a lot of babies that you need lots of energy to lay those eggs and take care of them. And so sometimes you need a snack, right? And the best snack is that boy who is right there. So sometimes they do get eaten. However, when we breed our tarantulas and our spiders, we do keep very close watch on them to make sure that the girl doesn't get grouchy or get hungry and try to eat our boys, because we don't want that. We did have a boy, Rosie, and he had kind of a scary encounter with a girl, and now he's scared of all the girls. So we haven't tried to mate him again, because he's a little nervous now around the ladies. All right. When they eat, can they accidentally eat their own venom? So no, not quite. And their venom is not going to be harmful for them. So their venom is produced in glands inside their bodies. So this is kind of a gross analysis, but think about your saliva glands in your mouth, right? They produce the saliva that makes it easy for you to chew and keeps your mouth moist, but you have to constantly produce that, right? And just like with spiders, they have to constantly produce that venom. And so because it's their own, it's not going to hurt them. But it can be harmful to other things. That's how they subdue their prey, so that it doesn't hurt them. Because sometimes even like a little cockroach can hurt a big tarantula if it's fighting back. So that venom will kill it very quickly. It's kind of just one and done, we're over. And the venom also helps break down that food. So spiders don't have teeth to chew like we do, so they have to get kind of creative. So their venom starts to liquefy whatever they're eating and kind of turns it into a bug smoothie, so they can then slurp it up and eat it. So lots of protein there. I don't know if I could eat a bug smoothie, but that is how she's going to eat. All right. Lots more questions about how old she is. So again, I think she is about 15 years old, this one we're looking at right now. And she could probably live to be about 30 years old. So very, very long time. All right. Oh, Deanna asked, how come the pink toe one is red and not pink? That's a great question. So they do have some natural color variation. And I believe that one picture I had was one from our collection. So she lives at Butterfly Pavilion, and she's got that really, really gorgeous red, dark pink coloration, but you do have some color variation in them. Some of them are a little bit lighter pink. Some of them may shift into being kind of a deep, dark red. It's just like humans, right? We have different color hair, we have different color eyes, we have different color skin. It's perfectly normal. Same happens with spiders. So that Rosie is older than you, yes, yes, especially for all those second graders and fourth graders. Yes, she is currently older than you. Can I make her move? All right, so I'm gonna give her a little poke. This is for science, Rosie. Just give her a little twitch. You can see she kind of pulled her legs in. She's like, who touched me? So again, that's her way of saying she'd prefer not to be picked up. But she's not super scared. She just kind of like, ugh, you're annoying me. I'm gonna stop. Let's give her one more little poke. Yeah, they're kind of like cats again when you touch their feet. She's like, ooh, no, don't touch my toes. But why isn't she moving? Because she doesn't want to, right? So tarantulas, they tend to be very low energy. And in the wild, she's just going to sit really still, and she's going to wait for food to come to her. She doesn't need to move around a whole lot. She doesn't want to move around a whole lot. Their favorite thing to do is nap. So she does have, again, if I back this up, she does have a nicely spaced enclosure. You can see she's got a water dish. We've got some plants to hang out, make our space pretty. So she's got lots of room to move around, but you don't need a huge enclosure for a tarantula. In fact, they prefer to have kind of a little bit smaller so she doesn't get stressed out. So this is the right size box for her. She can feel comfortable. She's got room to move around and stretch her legs if she wants to, but it's not so big that she feels like she has to keep patrolling or be on constant alert. And then we asked, do they make big webs? So tarantulas do make silk. but they don't use it for capturing their food. They instead use it to like line their burrows, so kind of like cozy blankets, to make her space. Now I'm looking in here. She does have a little cave. She's on the roof of her cave right now, so I'm not going to open it up. But I'm looking in there. She doesn't really have a whole lot of silk in there, so she must be comfy with just her dirt, and she doesn't feel like she needs a lot of silk. But they will sometimes use it to like make like carpets in their little houses, so it stays nice and soft. All right, what kind of spider is she? So she's a tarantula and she's a Chilean rose hair. If we're into scientific names, the Latin names, it's Grammostola rosea is her genus and species. And again, she comes from South America. All right, I did get her to, yeah, I thank you. Why I did get her to move, and she got a little annoyed with me, but not too annoyed. She didn't run away. Right, Marina asked, does she have company? And the answer is no. So most tarantulas prefer to live by themselves. There are some species that live with families, but usually small family groups, like with their siblings, not just any old tarantula. But Rosie, she is a solitary species. If we put another tarantula in here with her, they would definitely fight. And probably one of them would get seriously injured or even killed. So we don't want that. So Miss Rosie's gonna stay by herself. She's not lonely. She's perfectly happy to be by herself. And of course, she does have our zookeepers who go and feed her every week. So she gets attention. And then where did we get her? So I'm actually not sure where this one came from. So she was not born at Butterfly Pavilion, but she was probably born at another zoo and then came to live with us. So her container doesn't say exactly where this one is from. We do also sometimes get donations from people of maybe they got her as a pet and then they couldn't care for her anymore, or maybe they just didn't like having a spider. So we do take donations as well. If anyone has pet tarantulas or has inherited a pet tarantula and is not sure what to do with her, they can come live at Butterfly Pavilion. And yes, her name is Rosie is because she's a rose hair tarantula. Yes. So again, she's not super pink, but we can see a little bit on her cephalothorax, just a little bit of pink shimmer there for that pretty color. And Susie asked, has she had babies before? I don't believe she has, no. So we do have a breeding program where we're trying to have baby rosies, but these girls are kind of picky about where they lay their eggs. And if you remember me talking about our poor little boy had a scary encounter with a girl who didn't like him very much, and now he's all nervous around the ladies. So, and he's our only boy right now. So she has not had babies that I know of, but maybe one day we'll have some baby rosies. And then they asked, did you buy her in a pet shop? So no, we did not get her from a pet shop. Tarantulas can make really good pets. However, you got to make sure you're getting them from an ethical source. So most pet shops they're going to be bred in captivity. They're not taken from the wild. But if they are taken from the wild, that can have some really serious impacts on the local ecology. So actually, Rosie is a great example of this. So Chile has now made it illegal to go and take them from the wild and bring them to places like the United States for pets, because so many people were going and collecting them that they almost went extinct in Chile. Because they take so long to grow and it takes them a while to have their babies. Even taking one from the wild can have some really serious implications for the ecosystem. And so we definitely don't want to do that with tarantulas. So we work with other zoos to kind of share our tarantulas, either for breeding or if we don't have space or someone doesn't have space at their zoo, we will kind of transfer them. Sometimes you hear about that with things like tigers or elephants in zoos, right? Maybe one goes to live at another zoo so that they can have a pair and they can have babies. And same thing happens with spiders. It's just a lot easier to transport a spider than it is an elephant, because she can just go in a box and ride in the car. Whereas an elephant, you need a really big truck, a really big truck. So we did not find her outside. This one has been under human care her entire life. And she wouldn't do so well here in Colorado outside, just because it is a little hotter here than she would be used to. And she really would probably be really scared, actually, because she's lived with humans her whole life. So she probably wouldn't love coming coming to go outside and play. Though I did see that Katie said we found clover in your neighborhood. Yeah, so yeah, people do find little jumping spiders, um, and can make pets of them. We just want to make sure that we're being, we're taking care of them, we're giving them the right type of food that they need, um, and making sure that they have space to like move around and even play. Even play. Even spiders like to play. It doesn't quite look like, say, like a dog or a cat playing, but we do give them, we actually like to give them little ping pong balls, and they like to push them around and roll them around their space. They also like to dig in the dirt. And so you can kind of see in here again, we can see in her soil's kind of loose so that she can dig holes if she want to. She can push it around, and she can make her space her own. And then I did not get to name her. No, our zookeepers named her. Sometimes I do get to name the spiders or the other animals, but this one she already had a name, and that's Rosie. And then Katie said, Clover ate a fly bigger than himself yesterday. Yes, so jumping spiders are interesting because they can eat things bigger than them. Rosie cannot. She can only eat things maybe about half the size of her body or smaller. So she does actually, I think it's hiding right now. There is a little cockroach in here that she hasn't eaten yet, but it's a little teeny one. And we also feed crickets. So even though she's a really big spider, she can't eat super big things. But jumping spiders can. They can. I've seen them take down grasshoppers that are like 3 times their size. And so it's really awesome. That's amazing. All right, Miss Allison, I know we have run over by like almost 20 minutes. How are we doing?
Oh my goodness, Teacher Kayla, you got every question I saw come up. I did have a friend come up quickly in our Q&A that asked, "How do you handle having a spider as a pet?" So I know we have
Oh,
some friends here that have spiders for a pet, but as the last question, if it's okay with you and you have the time, do you have any good
yeah,
some
yeah,
good hints for those that might be interested in getting a spider as a
yeah.
pet now?
Yeah, so spiders can be fun pets. However, if you're looking for something that's very cuddly, is going to sit on the couch and watch TV with you, may not be the best pet for you. But they can be really fun to watch, especially jumping spiders, because they will kind of interact with you. Tarantulas, what you're seeing right now, this is pretty much all she does all day, which is fine, right? She is not my personal pet. She belongs to Butterfly Pavilion. Um, but I don't find spiders all that scary because I've worked with them and I've learned about them. I used to be terrified of spiders actually when I was a kid, terrified of all bugs. And now I work at the bug zoo. So for me, kind of learning to live with them was just learning about them, and that even though they look kind of weird, um, that they're actually not that scary, right? The things we may have learned from like scary movies and things like that, or maybe even from the adults in our lives of, oh my gosh, they're terrifying, they're going to kill me. That's not true. That's not true. They're just little animals trying to go about their business just like we are. They're really important for pest control, right? So you may not love spiders, but you probably dislike flies and gnats and mosquitoes even more. And so, especially like our orb weaving spiders, our web building spiders, um, they are really good for that. But if you're thinking about a spider as a pet, definitely do your research. Um, Jumping spiders, there's a lot of good resources out there. And then if you're thinking about tarantulas, I would actually recommend a YouTube channel called Tarantula Collective. He is not affiliated with Butterfly Pavilion at all. He's just a person who has hundreds of tarantulas and shares a lot of information about them. But he's got some really great information on species that are good to start with, setting up your enclosure, how to take care of them. So that is a really good resource for you. But the great thing about keeping them as pets is if you don't like spiders, you don't have to keep them as a pet. You can just let them hang out outside and let them do their thing. Um, you know, I don't recommend getting a pet that you're going to be terrified of. So if that's not your thing, that's perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. You can enjoy looking at pictures of them or looking at videos of them online.
That's good advice. And now we do know if you ever inherit just like this, Rosie may have come to you, that we have a great group of experts that can help get that tarantula or spider species to the right place. So we appreciate you, teacher Kayla, for letting us know all of this amazing stuff, and for Rosie. If I hope you can hear us, we're saying thank you to Rosie as well for being here and hanging out with us. I want everyone to just want to remind everyone that your learning with the Butterfly Pavilion does not need to stop here. You could meet Rosie again or meet other amazing ambassadors that are at their museum. So I want to make sure that you know that you can click on the link I just dropped into the chat. You can check out all the different topics you can jump into. And guess what? You can even have your cameras and microphones on. Super fun. So we like to make sure that you know you can schedule your very own experience. We also had a really fun comment come through our Q&A. We had a share that the October Scholastic Magazine Science Spin is "Do Spiders Wear Costumes?" So this is perfect, seeing all the spiders in your presentation with what they are learning about. So along with all of the buys and the thank yous that you're seeing here, teacher Kayla, we have some friends that are also really excited to have been able to see some up close experiences to reinforce their learning in the classroom. So thanks so much for all those examples. All right, friends. I didn't see any other questions that came in. We do our best to answer every question we can live as thoroughly as possible. If something was missed, no worries. Send an email to info@cilc.org and we will make sure to send it over to teacher Kayla and their team, and we will make sure that you are able to get those answers when they have the time to answer them. We have lots of friends saying thank you, bye, how great your presentation was, and for answering all of the questions. And thank you for all of the interesting facts about spiders. So we are so grateful. Happy Halloween to those that are saying happy Halloween. But guess what? Tomorrow we are back. We're going to stay a little spooky. We're going to move a little bit away from science, and we're actually going to learn a little bit about poetry as we make our own artwork inspired by the poems of Edgar Allan Poe. We're going to be hanging out with the Poe Museum, who are going to help guide us through those activities. We're going to meet the same time that we met at the top of the hour, wherever in the world that was for you. We'll meet at that same exact time tomorrow. So we hope to see you there and look forward to learning along with you more then. Thank you so much, teacher Kayla. Can't wait till you stop by again. Thank you again to Rosie, and bye everyone. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye. Thanks for having us.